Madison's Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, June 13th, 2022. And when our Joe Patterson, our secretary, gets back, we'll have a roll call.
Mark Acosta, Nancy Burkhart.
Here.
Rick Ferris.
Here.
Scott Baldwin.
Here. Before we begin, there may be some of you here tonight who have an interest in what would have been the first item on our agenda, Open Road Renewables, Williams Power. It's a conditional use permit to establish a battery energy storage system on 4000 North Paper Mill Road. That one, the applicant has requested it be tabled, so we won't be discussing that at all tonight. So if any of you here were here for that purpose, you're welcome to stay for our meeting or feel free to leave. First item on our agenda are the minutes. Now, we have 2 months' minutes to approve. One is from last April, and there are enough people here who were at that meeting. So, board members, have you all had an opportunity to look over the minutes from the April meeting? Are there any additions or corrections? And I have one correction. In the portion of the minutes which were recorded by Court Reporting and Video Services, page 12, line 26, they mention Indian Gate Road, and that should be Indian Cave Road. So that's the one thing I noticed. So I move we approve the April minutes with that correction, unless board members have any more.
Nope. Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Their April minutes are approved. The May minutes, I was not at that meeting, so I cannot vote on it. So we only have two of the people who were at that meeting, so we don't have enough people here to approve them. So that approval will be next month, hopefully. Okay, moving on. Renewals for conditional use permits. I'm going to go through some of them, the ones who have paid first. I won't read them entirely. Number 2 on the agenda, James Gurley, he paid, no complaints. Number 4, Laser Command LLC, paid, no complaints. Number 5, Knights of Columbus, they paid their fee, no complaints. Number 7, Susan Smith, 1000 plus East Fulton Street, she has paid, no complaints. And number 8 on the agenda, Darlissa Davis, 206 Green Road, she has paid with no complaints. I move that we approve these conditional use permits.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Those are approved. Now, there are a few more who, as of our meeting, have not yet paid. Number 1, Catherine Ayers, 1116 West Main. She is not, as of yet, paid. Number 3 on the agenda, Anna Nguyen, 1402 Bear Street, has not yet paid her renewal fee. Number 6, Pet Sense LLC, has not yet paid their renewal fee. And therefore, I move that we direct our attorney to send them a letter indicating that their renewal fees are not paid and that their conditional uses have expired. However, if they pay their fee before our next regular meeting, it will be renewed. And I would also instruct that the letter contain information that if they wish to apply for an extension or a longer period, they can contact the building office and apply for a longer period than what they have. That's my motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
And roll call?
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Bolden.
Yes. That takes care of our renewals. Moving on to new applications. As I said, number one on the agenda, Open Road Renewables, or Williams Power LLC. They were seeking a conditional use permit to establish a battery energy storage system at 4,000 North Paper Mill Road in zoned agriculture. However, they have requested that this be tabled until our next regular meeting. So I move that we table this application till our next regular meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's tabled till our next meeting. Moving on, number two on the agenda, Brian Shepherd is requesting a variance from development standards for setbacks to allow building a garage. He is requesting a zero lot line on his north property line at 1338 Green Road, and that's R8. So, Mr. Shepherd or somebody, would you come up? Yes, sir.
Mr. Shepherd.
And please, just for the record, give your name and address and tell the board what you are asking for, what you want to do.
I'm Brian Shepherd. All reason I'm asking for the variance is I just want to build the building parallel to the house, and it's only 12 inches from the boundary line.
You're asking a zero lot line, and studying this, essentially, really, you're asking for like a 10-inch from
Yeah,
the north.
10 to 12, I forgot what the true measurements was.
You have here on your sketch 10 inches.
Yeah. I think it equaled out about 10 to 11.
Is that where your house is also?
No, there's nothing on this side.
No, I meant, is your house that far from the property line? I thought you said,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
misunderstood you.
okay.
So the north edge of your house is also 10 inches from your,
Yeah, yes, about 10 to 11 inches, and it just kind of makes a wider turn when it goes towards the back.
and the chain link fence, well,
I want to keep it.
did you install that? Is
No,
all-
I bought the property
Oh.
last year. It was there, and I want to keep it.
So are you certain the 10-inch fence is in your
Yeah,
property?
yeah, it is. I had it. Yes, it is.
You had a survey
Yes.
done? So it's probably, is it a few inches south of that?
Yeah.
North lot line?
Because I put the 35 feet from the Van Buren side, and that's where I marked it. So, yeah.
And I have noticed, board members, that on the GIS says your house was built in 1958. And
I can't tell you that for sure.
staff, you told me that it was that's true, that it was one of the earliest subdivisions in Madison.
Is that
Yeah.
true? 58?
Yeah, that's what the GIS says
Okay. I
on
didn't know that. I
the
didn't know
property
that.
card. And that would be 8 years before Madison, the first zoning ordinance that I know about. I have no knowledge that there was one prior to the 1966 zoning ordinance. So I note that. Board members, do you have any other questions or comments?
So how far off the road would the front of the garage be?
Same as what the house is now. I don't have that exact measurement with me. I kept it straight where it was. I forgot what the true dimensions is. It's supposed to be from the Green Road all the way in. Because all them houses down there should be the same. I don't have that true measurement.
So the only variance you're applying for, though, is that zero lot line?
Yeah, other than
All
that,
other
no.
ones go within the
Our rest of them's on
guidance?
the variance tolerance, yes.
Any other questions, comments, board members? I do notice your size of your lot is, it's about like 55 by 150 or
Yeah, I'm not going to.
something like that, which seems to be very typical of houses in your area.
You've already had discussion with the building inspector, correct?
Yes.
Board members, anything else? Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this variance application? Okay. Board members, one last chance. Okay, thank you, sir. You can sit down. Applicant is requesting a 0 lot line, and your plans are actually to build 10 inches from your chain link fence. So I move we approve this, a variance for the applicant to build his garage no closer than 10 inches to his chain link fence.
Then we have to do the findings.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Like I've never done this before. See, you all want fast meetings.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, thank you. Per Indiana code, there are 3 criterion. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Ferris?
You know, I drove through that area and it reminds me a lot of, the issues in downtown Madison where everything is, close together and the lots are small. I don't see any reason why it would be injurious to any of those things. I mean, to me, the issue is we've got a resident of Madison that's trying to improve a property. So I don't think it would be injurious to any of those things.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with Mr. Ferris, and I don't think it's gonna change the general welfare of the community.
And I'm in agreement. I think the general welfare is not harmed. Looking at the GIS and driving through there, it seems that they're slightly bigger than R8 lots, but still, they were laid out 8 years before, to my knowledge anyway, 8 years before there was a zoning ordinance. So I think that one's met. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Ferris?
I don't see any negative impact on the surrounding area and adjoining properties. Again, the applicant is trying to invest in the property and improve the property.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I also agree with that. I don't think the value will be affected in a negative manner.
And we've heard no testimony that it would be from anybody who would stand as a expert opinion, so. And certainly in putting up a garage in this day and age on your property is not viewed as harmful. I think that one's met. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, strict application would prevent the applicant from being able to build the garage. So I think it definitely would present practical difficulties in his ability to use that property.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I also agree with that, and he's lining it up with his current house that has the same distance from the lot line, so there's no really else to put it.
And I agree with Mrs. Burkhart. That was the same thing I was thinking. We've gone through our findings of fact. All are in agreement with them. Therefore, I move that we approve this variance to allow the construction of a garage no closer than 10 inch to the chain link fence. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
And a roll call.
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Well, sir, you have your variance. The next item on our agenda is Red Ball Recycling, requesting a conditional use permit for a metal recycling facility at 2910 Wilson Avenue, and that's in M1 or light manufacturing. Do we have somebody in the audience to represent the company? Come on, give your name and address, please, for the record. Explain what you plan to do.
Name is Brian Donahue, address 200 Willinger Lane, Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. So I own a recycling, metals recycling facility in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and we buy from small manufacturing, mid-sized manufacturing companies and the general public, plumbers, electricians, aluminum cans, copper, steel, old farm implements, stuff like that. And we draw a decent amount of business from this area, Hanover, Madison, that come our way. And we've been looking at this area for a little while as potential for future expansion, and identified this property on Wilson Avenue that may or may not, I guess it'll be up to you guys, fit the criteria for what we're doing. And it's a 12-acre piece of property. We plan on using not all of it, but that's the lot size. And we have proposed to potentially build a 6,000 to 7,000 square foot warehouse. And then there'd be a truck scale that would go alongside. It's in the drawing that we submitted. There'd be a truck scale that would go alongside the warehouse where a vehicle or a truck would pull in and weigh, go back and unload, come back, weigh out. Majority of the customers would get paid at that time and then leave. It would probably employ, in the early stages, probably 5 people locally and upwards of 10 maybe as time went on. I don't see it being a whole lot bigger than that as far as how many people it would employ. Historically, facilities like ours have, not been shed in a great light, irresponsible owners or what have you. That's not how we operate. I mean, it's a pretty clean facility that we operate in Jeffersonville. That's what we would propose here, fenced and screened, however, whatever meets city requirements here as far as that's concerned. We anticipate probably 50 to 60 transactions a day, maybe a few more. As time would go on, that wouldn't be what it would be at the beginning. After maybe a year or two, you'd probably have about 50 to 60 people a day that would come and leave. At the front of this property, there's already a conditional use permit which is not mine, it's the owner at the front of this property, it's kind of like a small industrial area. He operates an operation at the front that dumps rock and concrete, and it's an excavation contractor that we're talking to about purchasing the property from. It sells rock and mulch and stuff. So it's got a pretty good setback from the main road. Probably wouldn't have a huge amount of visibility as far as that's concerned. So any questions, I'm here to answer,
I got a
guys.
question for you. So is it all gonna be self-contained, like, what I mean, is it all gonna be indoors, you're not gonna have any dumpsters outside?
No, it wouldn't be all indoors. So the only thing that would really take place indoors is the more valuable stuff like copper and aluminum and brass and stuff like that. Outdoors, like the steel and stuff that would come in, like if somebody brought in an old washing machine or you got to handle that outside with like an excavator type piece of equipment, so it'd come off and get unloaded off a truck, put in a trailer, and haul back to our main facility in Jeffersonville.
Any other questions, board members?
Well, I would say that as one that sells scrap metal to different vendors, there are some that keep things pretty organized and maintained, and there are those that don't.
I agree.
So I guess, can you tell us how you're gonna keep this place organized and keep it from looking like a junkyard?
So it's no different than, a lot of it's personality, right? This is my own company, and I don't have any partners or not, and part of any other organization. We're about a $30 million a year business in Jeffersonville, okay? We've got upwards of 50 employees, and my philosophy is for customers to come in and want to come back, it's got to be clean and tidy, okay? And the other side of it is our business is regulated by local, state, and federal agencies, from EPA to IDEM, in Indiana, and then local zoning and city enforcement codes. And our motto has always been tour ready within 10 minutes. So if somebody shows up, we like to be able to walk them around and have no flaws. Anybody's welcome to come to our facility in Jeffersonville at any time and see it. It's paved, the buildings are new. We've invested, I think since June of last year, we've invested about $4 or $5 million in the piece of property that we have in Jeffersonville, Indiana. We're not your grandpa's junkyard. I mean, this is scrap metal recycling. It's not cars or parts or windshields or, you know what I mean? We move industrial metals from the likes of Madison Precision here we deal with on a daily basis with all their aluminum and stuff like that. It's just how we operate.
So how long have you been in Jeffersonville?
The location we opened in June of last year, we were in Clarksville for 7 years prior to that, 8 years prior to that, and we moved because they're building a park where we were located in Jeffersonville. So we came to an agreement with Parks Department in Clarksville to move because we were close to the river. They're buying about 600 acres in that area, and we've moved to Jeffersonville. Been to Jeffersonville, the current location, for a year.
So do you put up fencing that you can't see all that stuff from the road?
So
or-
everywhere we've ever went is different, right? So Jeffersonville required a fence, and we had to get a variance to put up the height of the fence. So they usually have like the city ordinance in Jeffersonville, they have just a regular chain link fence that you can see through. But we got a variance to put up an 8-foot fence there that you can't see through. And we had to plant, for Jeffersonville, we had to plant trees around the fence, so over time they mature and grow, so it wouldn't be visible to the public.
So what are your plans
And that
here?
helps us as much as it helps them from a security standpoint.
Right, so what are your plans here with that?
It would be, so for us, our preference is to put up a tall fence, 8 foot tall, that nobody can see through, and you can't see in, I can't see out kind of thing, and screen it with trees. But if, we have to obviously work with the building department to find out what's required. Jeffersonville and Clarksville, everybody's got, somewhat different requirements as far as that's concerned.
Joe, do you know if we have a requirement?
There's
What kind of requirements?
Well, like he's saying,
For salvage type operations.
Our manufacturing districts are pretty lenient when it comes to development standards.
But that would be your plan, is to build, if you say, this is what we're gonna build an 8-foot fence and put trees around it.
So what I'm used to, so this will be the 4th conditional use permit I've applied for in different parts of like Kentucky, Indiana. And what we're used to is we apply for a conditional use permit and we get it based on, what you guys require. What kind of fence you want me to put up, how many trees you want me to put up, what kind of lighting, what kind of hours you want me to operate, and that's what we agree on. And that's the boundaries in which we work in. And if we can't work in it within the boundaries you set forth, we don't accept it and we walk away. But we all have to agree. I'm not going to, spend several $1 million and open a business somewhere I'm not wanted. And that's just, we all have to want to be, you have to see that I add value to this area in some way, shape, or form, and then we work together. So
What are your hours in Jeffersonville?
our hours in Jeffersonville are 7:30 to 5. Here, we would probably be 8 to 4:30.
8 to 4:30.
5 days a week. And then on a Saturday, we're open 8 to 12. And that's usually that takes care of the working guys, you know, moms and dads that are working all week, that take their kids down with aluminum cans, or guys that work on cars all week, or farmers, or what have you. So it's a busy day for us, usually Saturday mornings.
And you don't handle any hazardous materials or anything like that? Huh?
No, I mean, and even the laws have changed in Indiana as far as the way you buy things. So buying, you know, we used to buy a lot of automobiles in Jeffersonville, and that would be about the most hazardous thing you're going to buy is a car in our business, because of gasoline and stuff like that. And the law has changed in Indiana in July of last year. I want to say July of last year. I may, don't quote me on that. Where it became a title law. We actually have to have a title to a vehicle to sell it, and that basically stopped that business to a big degree. And so cars don't move as frequently as they did. But the worst thing we handle in our business is an automobile.
So, what kind of rules do you live by when it comes to, like I've taken lawnmowers, I've taken four-wheelers, I've taken UTVs, and nobody ever asks, did you drain the gas and did you drain the oil?
So the requirement for us to sell it, right, is that it can't have any of that material in it. You can't have any gas in the equipment when it's sold.
But it's gonna come in with it.
It does come in with it.
You know
So
it will.
It always does. So we drain it. We have a system where, you know, work on, for lack of a better term, a concrete pad with a retaining wall around it, and at one end of it would be an oil water separator. Gas is drained into whatever receptacle. You know, it's hard to explain it, but it's usually a tall piece. You put it, set it up there. Some guy drains the gas out of it, puts it into a tote. Tote's 200 gallons usually, I think. It's a lid put on it, and then that's disposed of by means of, in Louisville, we call a company out of Louisville. They come, they drain it, and they leave.
Okay.
Safer than requiring guys to take gas out of it, because what ends up happening then is the gas gets drained into the guy's front yard, gets drained out on the farm, gets drained out at the car wash.
Right.
Okay? Because I've done it both ways. I've required gas to be drained, and the guys would pull onto my street and drain gas, or they
Yeah.
drain it at their house. So that is something that we have to address. It's a cost. I mean, and it's a burden to bear for us, but it has to be addressed.
Yeah.
So
And
do you say do you get audited? I mean,
We're
you said
subject
people
to-
come in, so who comes in?
So we have an annual, and it's not a lot, but it's an annual review from IDEM as far as our wastewater is
Yeah,
concerned.
right.
And then we have to hire an outside company, which we use NSS Environmental out of Louisville, and they come in quarterly and sample our water and stuff like that to make sure we're doing it right.
You've had good audits in Jeffersonville or Clarksville?
Yeah, we've never had an issue. I've got reports from IDEM where they've come out and inspected
Right.
randomly and not had an issue at either of our locations.
Okay.
Our Jeffersonville location, no, I'm sorry, because it's too new. So it's an annual basis. We started last June, so nobody's made it that far yet. They'll come. They will come.
They will come.
The second biggest issue,
deal with them.
the second biggest issue that scrap recyclers like me face and deal with on a daily basis is working with local law enforcement, okay? And we do that in Jeffersonville and Clarksville. We did it in both, you know, to make sure that, you know, that we're not, there's a certain amount of laws that you have to deal with when it comes to buying materials as well. You have to get IDs and take photographs and scan things and stuff. We've got a pretty vigorous process when it comes to that also.
Yeah, 3 air conditioning units went missing from our church
Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
They go missing went missing from my house. I was afraid I might have bought them. But I can tell you, I mean, they'll go missing whether they go missing whether I'm here or not,
Right.
unfortunately. But we work close enough with law enforcement that if something like that happens, we'll have the surveillance and the photographs of the person on our facility selling it that can usually lead to a conviction.
How many excavators do you think you'll have in operation?
A maximum of 2 at this location, and is my guess. I'd love to tell you 10, but the market wouldn't bear it. It would be 2, and the reason for the second one would be if the first one broke down, and they do.
Yeah.
They do break down. So it won't be a massive business in this area because it's a small, you know what I mean, it's a smaller community. I mean,
Sure.
It will not be as big as what I do in Jeffersonville. But there's also a lot of industry in this area.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with a lot of them.
And growing.
Have you ever had a fire in your gasoline or oil?
I did have a fire, but it had nothing to do with scrap, unfortunately. Fortunately, I had a fire in my maintenance shop one time. A guy, we had some stuff out in storage, and it was about this time of year. It was really, really hot. The stuff was wrapped in some kind of paper that we bought it in. It was some parts for trucks, and sitting on top of a piece of some sheet metal, and it got hot and caught on fire, and caught our building on fire. So yeah, we had that fire, but we don't, as a rule, we've been lucky enough, okay, that we haven't had fires. But it is part of industry also. But like I said, there's ways you can run your business, and there's way, to take care of things, to make sure you don't have incidents and issues. Most guys that have fires in scrap yards are due to buying a car with a battery in it and not taking the battery out.
Yeah.
That's what causes the majority of fires in the scrap business, or a lawnmower or an ATV with a battery. Shock you how quick a fire will start.
So if everything is approved, how soon would you anticipate starting?
It would take me a year. The way things are going, I mean, to find people to do construction and stuff. I wish it could be, it would be next year before it would be done. It would be a minimum of 6 to 7 months, 8 months, just under construction, and then however long it takes you to go out and hire people. It would take a while. We look at our total capital investment in equipment and land and buildings and stuff. We probably spend about $2.5 million on the property and the improvements. We'd probably hire 5 to 10 people over time. I would buy a house down here in this pretty town somewhere, and run it myself at the beginning.
Any other questions, board members? Well, you've given us an outstanding presentation of what it's like to have a scrapyard. Appreciate it.
And like I said, if it's something you guys consider, and it's something that you can do, we would work with staff, I guess, as far as what they would require and the amount of trees and landscaping and stuff like that. I would sign, a contract, for lack of a better term, that plant me the 10 trees or the 100 trees or 50 trees, and if you don't, and when all of those requirements are met, and only then would I get a certificate of occupancy to operate on the property. That's what we're used to.
One last chance, board members? Would anybody in the audience like to speak for or against this application? Yes, sir, you can. Okay. This is a conditional use, and I believe it's under category number 363, which is a conditional use in M1 and M2, metal recycling. Number one, our findings of fact. Number one, do you agree this is in fact a conditional use as established under the provisions of Article 5? Mr. Ferris?
I do. I think it fits well in the category of recycling.
Mrs. Burkhart,
I agree. In our binder, it says category 363 is allowed in M1 light manufacturing with conditional use permit.
and I agree with that. It's specifically allowed. No ambiguities here. Number 2, do you agree this will be harmonious with and in accordance with the general objectives or any specific objectives of the zoning ordinance? Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, I think, again, we've got an applicant that's willing to invest in our community for a service that is much needed, that a lot of people probably don't think about. And in talking to the applicant, it sounds like, you know, he's very conscientious about being a good neighbor and running a clean business, which I see as positive, so I think it does fit.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree it will be harmonious with the comprehensive plan.
And recycling facilities are specifically allowed in the official schedule of uses, so I think this is completely in accordance with that one. Number 3, do you agree this will be designed, constructed, and maintained to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of this general vicinity, and that it won't change the character of the same area? Mr. Ferris?
I think it will. Again, I think we addressed those questions with the applicant. I think, you know, there are some things that we need to address in our motion, specifically for this, which, you know, the applicant is well aware of. And it sounds like the Madison zoning ordinances are maybe, you know, lacking in exact detail for such things. But, yeah, I think the applicant said that he's willing to build a facility that is harmonious with the surrounding area.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with Mr. Ferris, and I do not think it'll change the character of the area.
That's specifically an area specifically set aside for light industry. It already has that usage nearby for dirt and rock and various other kinds of garden materials. There are all manner of small shops and factories in that area. So this is precisely where this kind of thing belongs. I think that one's met. Number 4, do you agree this will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future uses in the neighborhood? Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't think it will. I think it'll be beneficial to the neighbors and the manufacturing community in Madison. I think they're going to be providing a great service to our manufacturers.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I also agree with Mr. Ferris, and he's going to have set working hours during normal working time, so I don't think that'll be disturbing to neighboring uses.
And I think that having a recycle facility in a manufacturing type zoning area is where it belongs. It's not going to disturb where it belongs. Number 5, do you agree this will be served adequately by, you know, utilities and so forth? I won't read it all. Mr. Ferris?
I think it will. Again, that whole stretch of Wilson Avenue is designated for these types of businesses, so I think all the requirements are met.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, and he's had experience running it in different cities successfully.
And I agree that all the necessary utilities, fire protection, police, which would be not a great issue in this kind of business, it's all there in abundance. Number 6, do you agree this will not create excessive requirements for services and won't be detrimental to the public welfare, or the economic welfare of the community? Mr. Ferris?
I see no reason to believe that. In fact, I think it will be, have a positive impact on the economic welfare of Madison.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. I think it'll have a positive impact on economic welfare.
And having a business like this with this kind of investment is going to help this little town. I think that one's met. Number 7, do you agree this will not involve uses and things that would result in excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke? I won't go on. Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't see that, it'll produce, excessive, noise or odors. You know, you'll hear the sound of a couple of excavators running, probably towards the back of the property, and, there will be, you know, a little bit of an increase in traffic with trucks coming in and out, but again, that Wilson Avenue in that area was designed for just such a thing.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree. I don't see any detriment to any of the listed items. As I said before, he's gonna have set hours, so I don't see a problem.
And he's not going to handle any hazardous materials other than gasoline and oil, which I have no reason to believe will be handled dangerously, so I see no problems there. Number 8, do you agree this will have, that it won't create any interference with traffic and so forth? Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't think it will. Again, I think Wilson Avenue, and that whole, zoning district out there was built to handle this.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with that comment.
And I agree. It's an industrial area. It's designed for industrial traffic. Number 9, do you agree this will not result in loss of natural or historic features of major importance? Mr. Ferris?
No, I don't really know of any historic features out there in that area. So I don't see how it's gonna result in the destruction or loss or, cause damage to any historic features of Madison.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree with that, and he's even offered to, make the natural scene look better.
And I think that one's met there. I know of nothing greatly historic in that district. Well, we've gone through our findings of fact. And we can certainly take a motion if one of you board members has something in mind.
I would, make a motion that we approve this conditional use permit for, a period of 3 years due to the investment that the applicant is gonna be making. And I think that we add some stipulations that a fence be built, and I propose a solid fence where people can't see in, and it also protects the owner. I'm not sure what standard height of a fence would be, 8 or 10 feet. I'll propose a minimum of 8 feet. And I also think that, we need to have the building inspector work with the applicant to come up with a, kind of a storefront plan so that, you know, with trees and maybe some landscaping out front. So the appearance from the curbside that, you know, it doesn't give everybody that feeling of the, probably scrapyard that we used to think of.
Is that your motion?
That's my
You
motion.
wanna put some hours in?
We can add hours, so hours of operation would be Monday through Friday,
Or Saturday?
7:30 to 4:30,
That's a perfect.
okay? And then Saturday from 8 to noon,
Yes, sir.
okay? That's my motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Rick Ferris,
Yes,
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. Well, welcome to the community. We wish you success.
Can I step back and ask one
Certainly.
question?
Sure.
So on the 3-year thing, if the business is in operation and, they're meeting all the conditions and everything's going and we're not a blight on the community, I'm assuming it gets renewed?
you apply, you apply for renewal.
And at the time, you could also apply for a longer term.
But do you send reminders that their things are up, or?
We typically do send reminders, so it would just be a renewal
Yeah,
notice.
just pay a fee, don't you?
Okay, but is there, so just for my understanding, I mean, obviously the payback and it's not a
Sure.
it's a quick scheme, right? So if a man spends $2 million, he's not gonna make it back in 3 years, right? So I guess I'm trying to figure, is there a risk at the end of 3 years, even if you're doing everything right, and you're meeting all the conditions and we're doing everything we said we would do in this meeting and meeting all the requirements that you guys put forth, is there a scenario where somebody, let's say, doesn't like me or the business or the area, could just say, hey, we're not going to renew it just because we don't want to? Is that a scenario that exists? Or is it just a formality where a piece of paper comes out and bill gets paid, and if we're doing everything we're supposed to do, where it just gets renewed for
Yeah, so,
another 3 years? or
I've
whatever
been
it
on the
is?
board for about 6 years and watched it for another years before, and it amounts to a formality. And we are in process of updating rules of procedure, and you're glaring at me. Okay. Frankly, I have never seen a conditional use turned down.
I think as long as you're meeting what we've asked for, it's very difficult to get that overturned. Is it 100%
Just a
guaranteed? I
question.
can never say
Yeah.
100%.
Just a question, I mean,
Yeah.
'cause like I said.
every county is
Right.
different.
Like I said, I'm willing to sit down prior to, and outline everything that everybody wants. So I made the mistake in the past. I've made mistakes in the past, and I just want to make sure. we all-
Typically, they're renewed, and we're also in the reminder letter saying that if people especially who run legitimate businesses, want to apply for a longer term, like after the 3 years, if you wanted to apply for, and you've got a going business, nobody has complained, there's been no problems whatsoever, you could apply for a longer term.
Okay. Just to understand. So
Well, of
that
course,
was
you
my
want to
next step.
understand the rules.
Our next step would be to reach out with the building department, I guess, to try and set up some kind of meeting down the road where we talk about the fence and the type of material that they would like to see it built out of, and the type of trees they'd like to see planted, and
Yeah.
how far apart and stuff, okay?
Well, yeah, I mean, normally we approve conditional use permits for 1 year. But in my motion, I propose 3
Okay.
years for the investment. We want you to be successful,
Yep.
but we also have to protect the community from bad
Absolutely.
actors.
I don't disagree.
So-
Like I said, I learned the hard way.
Yeah,
I learned my lesson the hard way. So I
Yeah.
got a conditional use in the past and didn't do everything I was supposed to do.
yep.
Yeah, I'd say all you need to do is just meet with Joe. Okay, just set up.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Okay, moving on. Number 4 on the agenda is Brandon Taylor, 1306 West Second Street. Is a request for a variance for 29 inches on the west lot line. So, Mr. Taylor or somebody come up and give your name and address, explain situation, why you want the variance.
I'm Chance Cole. I live at 1733 Crozier Avenue. Brandon's on vacation, so he asked me to come down. His plan is he's wanting to do a bedroom addition off the back of the house. 14 by 24 is what he's hoping to do. And I think on the west side, from the property line, it would be 4 foot 6 inches, which is basically what the existing house is currently, down that whole side. So,
Right, your drawing shows 4 foot 6 inches for the house, and the 29 inches
yep, there's
is
a
a
bath.
small 10-foot, looks like a
Yeah, there's a
porch or something.
bathroom that jets off of there.
Oh, so that's what this
Yep, 20,
Okay,
yeah,
so that's-
29 inches.
part of the house, but the bathroom is,
Yep.
goes out from the wall.
And that's what the addition would be.
It would be the 4 foot, it would run with the 4 foot, 6 inches away. So it wouldn't be where the bathroom is, it would be with the rest of the house.
The bulk of the house is 4 foot 6 inches. Well, according to your sketch here, you got this bathroom portion, which is 10 feet. And then there's over a 8 foot there for 7 feet in the front, but most of the house going toward the back is 4 foot
Yes.
6. And you just want to extend
Yep.
even with that
Yep.
portion of the house. So in order to be legal, you're asking for a 29-inch variance. That's the way I see it. Is that substantially correct?
Yep, that works.
Any questions, comments, board members?
And we also talking about a north setback too, a 5-foot one?
No, I believe, so if it's 24 feet back, and he's got down that it would be 47 feet to the alley, I believe.
Right. The house per se is 47 feet from the alley, which is fine, but the 5 foot is for the,
The existing garage.
correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but the 5 feet is to make the existing garage legal.
Correct.
So that the whole house is recorded at the recorder's office of having these variances.
So the
To-
garage is already there,
Yeah.
all right.
You're not doing anything in the garage, you just want to have recorded on the deed that there's a variance for these
Correct a past issue.
correct past issues, is the way to put it.
Okay.
And could you tell us your relationship to the applicant?
I'll be framing it,
Okay,
so I did some work on the house. and
okay.
If it passes through, I would frame it.
Any other questions, comments, board members? Would anybody from the audience like to speak for or against this proposed variance? One last chance, board members. Well, then we'll move on to our findings of fact. Number 1, the approval, will this approval be injurious to public health, safety, morals, general welfare? Mr. Ferris.
No, I don't believe it will. We've got, an applicant that's wanting to, invest and upgrade a property, and, I don't see any reason that, this is gonna have a negative effect on health, safety, morals, or the general welfare of the community.
Mrs. Burkhart.
I agree, he's improving the general welfare of the property.
And I agree. The general morals of the community are not going to be damaged by following the law. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected substantially adversely. Mr. Ferris.
I don't think so. They're just bringing the addition out, to where it's parallel with the footprint of the existing house. And I don't see any reason that that would adversely affect adjoining properties.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, as we stated before, he's improving his property.
And we've heard no testimony from expert witnesses either way. There have been no complaints. I see no problem with simply adding 24 more feet to this house. Number 3, strict application will result in practical difficulties. And what are they, Mr. Ferris?
Yeah, the strict application would prevent them from building the addition. And you know, I think the practical difficulties are just, you know, the size and shape of the lot, and you know, it's an older neighborhood that we see a lot of these type of applications come in for.
Mrs. Burkhart?
I agree, and he's just extending on the west lot line, same setback that he has on his house.
And I agree that the 5-foot variance for an existing garage, the 29 inches, it's what we run into all the time downtown in a city that was laid out in the 19th century, and many of these houses were built long ago. So I think the practical difficulties are adherence to our modern standard is impossible. And I think that practically speaking, he's trying to bring the entire house into all the necessary variances for past deeds done by builders. I think that one's met. We've gone through our findings of fact. Do we have a motion? Or, yes, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the variance, requesting 5-foot setback on the north and 29-inch setback on the west lot lines for addition to the residence.
Second.
A roll call?
Nancy Burkhart,
Yes.
Rick Ferris.
Yes.
Scott Baldwin.
Yes. That concludes our 4 applications. Under old business, there were 2 previous people who had not sent in their renewal fees, MPP Rentals, Indiana Apartment Holdings. Both of those have been paid, and I would presume that therefore their conditional use, or their conditional uses are renewed by previous motions. So is there anything else, staff? Nothing else?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. We are adjourned. Here is your paper and your pen. Yeah, that was pretty short by our standards. 7:30. 1 hour.
Still got time to play 9 holes of golf, Nancy.
Too hot. I got mowing.
Too hot for that, for sure.
I like mowing when it's hot. Maybe I don't know why.
You like what?
Mowing when it's hot out.
Oh, yeah?
You have a nice
You can come
riding
mow, you can come mow my yard.